Monday morning check-in. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Monday morning, I know it's early. Getting over that Thanksgiving turkey and trying to get back on track with a new week. So I'm here to help you out with that. Appreciate you guys showing up Monday morning. Again, check in. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the channel, share it with your networks, press like. It kind of helps me get into the algorithm and trying to be able to go live. I can't go live if I don't have 1,000 subscribers. So I need you guys to help me get to 1,000 subscribers. We're going to talk today about housing on, now that the elections are kind of over with, local elections, we can begin to put pressure, as we talked about in earlier um, videos, on elected officials in terms of reentry. But I want to concentrate on housing today. Now that evictions are part of the conversation, I think it's important for us to begin to think about that. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get things popping, if you will. Definitely, again, appreciate you guys showing up. Monday morning, if you haven't done so already, please go and subscribe and tell everybody about it. All right, so let's talk about it. Now, in the last few videos, we talked about organizing and groups to put pressure on our elected officials. We also talked about the power of bringing folks who are directly impacted into that conversation. And we also talked about how in this moment, it's important for our allies and our advocates to utilize their leverage. And so right now, as I said, this series is targeting allies, organizer advocates, and eventually comms directors too. But right now, we're kind of talking specifically to advocates, but also want to talk to our allies, right? Because last month, the Department of Human Services issued a temporary order to stop evictions due to COVID-19 pandemic. Now, while the order provides relief to a large group of Americans, there are some important things to remember. First, the order only protects renters who meet certain requirements and who sign a form, which I'll drop below in the description, and give it to their landlords. Second, landlords can still charge late fees during the temporary relief period. Thirdly, if you break certain terms of your lease, you may still be evicted. Fourth, the CDC order doesn't apply to homeowners facing foreclosure. So contact your lender or servicer for options. Drop a link in the description for that as well. And finally, the CDC protections don't apply if you live in an area that already has the same or better eviction protection. So you should check on your local housing policies. I'm going to drop a link in the description for that as well. Now remember, this relief is temporary right now. Evictions are put on pause, but only until December 31st. Now, the reason why I feel like that's important is because as we talk about pathways for reentry, as we talk about successful reentry, centering Black and Brown people from directly impacted communities, increasing access to justice and opportunity for people with criminal records, um, public housing. In this instance, we really got to begin to target them, right? They can lift existing restrictions on individuals with open criminal cases or criminal records residing with their families. Now, as many people know, when you come home for parole or probation, part of your parole plan is making sure that you have a stable address to parole to. If you don't have a stable address, then there's a couple things there. Your quality of freedom is going to be impacted, but not only that, your chances of release are severely impacted as well. But in this period where people are facing evictions, we got to be cognizant of how much help people are going to need, not only with family members coming home, but their current situations trying to stay in their homes without being evicted. So we want to make sure we relax occupancy restrictions, and we want to make sure people have adequate access to quarantine if necessary. Um, we're going to drop this in the description so you have a chance to go through yourself, reentryshow.blogspot.com. I'll drop that link in there too. So we want to make sure that folks have access to housing. Folks have access to um, help with that housing. And when you think about where you're fitting in that cycle, I want you to think about whether you're an ally, you're an advocate, you're an organizer. What can you do to make sure people returning from prison are able to reintegrate better, right? So I know we talked about employment, I know we talked about healthcare, but right now, I think it's important for us to really hone in on housing and make sure that we are putting pressure on Public Housing Authority. Also, we want to, think about county, local officials, right? You want to create immediate access to testing. You want to provide funding, ensure people returning to community have phone and internet access. We want to support existing reentry transitional service organizations. And that is kind of the bulk of the issue, is that there are very few organizations doing the work and they're severely underfunded. So what that means is the governmental agencies have to take some of that pressure off of local services, or either fund those services or take on some of the work that those services are not able to do. Many of those organizations can only serve a small population. So that means local and county governments have to consider, when we're talking about this police to funding budgets, how much of that budget can be reallocated towards reentry. If we think about reentry being one of the ways for us to decarcerate and stop recidivism, and we're taking money from, we want folks to stay safe, but we also know that many times these budgets are padded by FOPs, Fraternal Order of Police, and those union agreements that pack a lot more money into those contracts than are necessarily needed to keep folks safe, right? Because that's a whole other conversation. But what I'm saying is, let's reallocate those funds over to these service providers, or let the government pick up some of the slack that these service providers aren't able to handle, right? So that means, direct funding to housing providers and, folks who organize with tenant associations for LGBTQ folks. We should be putting those folks in the front of the line, folks who organize for formerly incarcerated people, justice impacted people, people who may be survivors of domestic violence. Those folks should go to the front of the line, because they're going to be the most vulnerable when we talk about evictions and we talk about being released from these detention centers, jails, and prisons. All right, so we're going to drop all of that in the chat, and well, not in the chat, but in the comment section. I want to make sure you folks check in every Monday morning. I'm back on track. We're going to keep doing this now, and we're going to drop some stuff in between the week too. But right now, let's think about public housing. Let's think about providing housing. Let's think about transitional housing, and drop some comments if you have connections, if you have ideas, if you have resources. We want to create a community around reentry. We want to build an ecosystem of reintegration so folks can have a quality of freedom that will not only keep them out of prison, jails, and institutions, but it'll help the community kind of be part of that process as well. All right. Every Monday morning, 8 a.m., we're going to be here. You don't have to watch it at 8 a.m. Of course, you can watch it anytime, but that's when they're going to premiere. All right. So if you haven't done so already, make sure you subscribe, like the video, like the channel, share the channel. Find me on social media. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Twitter. I do some kind of Instagram a little bit, not a whole lot. So find me on those things. All right. You guys have an excellent, amazing rest of the week. I really appreciate you guys. And make sure you share the video. All right. Have a good one.